Hi, in this video I'm going to go through the 5 reasons I've decided in the start of a Danish winter not to replace the IONIQ Electric car that I used to have back in the UK before I moved here for work, and to get a family cargo e-bike. Probably the worst time of year to do that. Have I gone mad or do I have good reasons? Let's talk about it in this video. Electrical efficiency. Now my reason number 1 is simply traffic. When I first arrived here back in the summer, the traffic didn't seem too bad, and I think there were a number of reasons why I came to that impression. First, I was living in temporary accommodation very close to where I worked, walking distance basically, and I didn't see much of the traffic. And also I think people were away for the summer, so it wasn't representative of what I actually see now when I go in and out on the bus or whatever in the mornings and return in the evenings. Traffic in Aarhus gets very gridlocked, and the way that the kind of like traffic signal priorities and road priorities work, you can get gridlock at junctions almost immediately because things can't turn right until cyclists and pedestrians have gone, and then there's not like a kind of multi-phase staging on the traffic lights. It's just green or red. Yeah, you can sort of see a bus and wait for a bus sort of just to come one set of traffic lights for about 10-15 minutes at rush hour. It's terrible, and the traffic, you can't go anywhere because the lane is blocked by people trying to turn right. And yeah, it's not very well thought out, and overall the traffic is terrible. Then there's the issue with parking. Wouldn't be very good. I think parking is free where I work, but still it's in scarce supply and it goes very early in the morning. Now it's not to say the traffic is as bad as it used to be when I commuted back in the UK, in and out of Manchester, sort of 30 miles, 50 kilometers each way. That was pretty lousy. I used to get up at sort of 5 in the morning and try and get in and try and avoid the traffic as early as possible, and then try and not, sort of commute back outside rush hour. But rush hour in Manchester in the UK was from about, midday, 1 p.m. onwards. Terrible congested levels of traffic. I'm not too keen on going back to that, and I'd like to see if there's another way around that issue for now and not have to deal with parking when I get to work. That's my reason number 1, traffic. So my second point then is cost, but just to reinforce my first point, when I went to pick up the family cargo e-bike, you can see the traffic here in Aarhus. This wasn't just sort of rush hour, it was just coming into the evening rush hour. And yeah, just look at it, sort of, head to tail traffic and not going anywhere and congested and so on. The main reason why I got the cargo e-bike now, I was going to get it a bit later on, was the store owner wanted to give a big discount, and it's a very good quality German engineered Reese and Muller bike with a carbon belt drive and suspension fork and suspension seat and so on. And it seemed really well made, and when I rode it, it was light years ahead of the other bikes that I'd ridden. So yeah, I really thought it was a good one to get. It wasn't a cheap bike by any means. It's not kind of like a sort of impulse purchase, but it's an awful lot cheaper than an EV. One of the big problems trying to get the new generations of EVs these days with larger battery capacities and larger ranges is the prices just keep going up and up, and the availability is not great. So people might be charging over list price and so on. I've seen that here in Denmark. And even getting a second-hand car, like trying to replace my IONIQ Electric from the UK, like for like, with a first generation second-hand IONIQ Electric here, it's more than I paid second-hand in the UK almost 2 years ago, way more. So I'm just not keen right now to put down that kind of lump of money in a big sort of depreciating lump of metal for the time being, and until I'm more certain about the circumstances here in Denmark and conditions and my spouse's work situation and all that kind of thing. So yeah, the fact that instead of kind of saving up and worrying about a huge purchase like of a Tesla, which I'm still very enthusiastic about, I think they're great cars, rather than kind of aspiring to that, I decided to get something I could afford and to give it a try. So that's reason number 2, cost. Reason number 3 then is just learning. Now, I'm convinced that a lot of the innovations in electric bikes over the recent years have been enabled by the huge advances in battery technology that have happened around electric cars. Just the kind of scale and the volume of lithium-ion batteries and electric motors and things, the engineering expertise that's been developed around that, and just, the knowledge and know-how of doing all these things and making them smaller and more energy dense and more efficient with the motors and things. It seems to have provided a lot of sort of spillover or complementary innovations in other sectors, like bicycles. And it's nice going back to things that I've sort of taken for granted or learned when I drove the IONIQ Electric back in the UK, and seeing them in a kind of different domain, a different territory with the e-bikes. So some examples are, I'm going back to charging batteries again now and worrying about whether to charge it to 100% or leave it at 80% if I'm not going to be using it immediately and so on. Thinking about battery degradation of the lithium-ion batteries. And generally other bike technology seems to have come a long way too, particularly around brakes. There's disc brakes on the family cargo bike. I'm having to learn to adjust those and so on. I'm going to have to do some fiddling with that this weekend because they're rubbing, and I wouldn't, the car, I would just take it to a car dealer and so on and get it sorted out once a year. With the bike, it's a bit more hands-on, a bit more frequent maintenance, but I'm sort of enjoying, the idea of getting used to what actually makes a vehicle move and finding out more about that. And, the bike has suspension, which I've never ridden a bike with suspension before, both on the seat post and on the front forks. There are some other Riese and Müller models that are fully suspended. I'd love to try one of those, especially the higher speed ones. I think they'd be really amazing technology and a great way of getting around cities particularly. And then there's the whole thing of cycle technology in terms of the developments in clothing. I still haven't found a good solution yet. All I've managed to do is find good high visibility gloves that don't make my hands wet. They're not wet on the inside after I've cycled, and they're windproof and waterproof. That's about as far as I've got. The rest of it, I've got to learn the whole thing about how to dress from sort of bottom up, really. Particularly to be able to cycle in all weathers all year round here in Denmark. Now, my reason number 4 is a bit more subtle. It's even lower impact. So driving an electric car, an electric vehicle like a Nissan Leaf or a Tesla or a Hyundai Kona or something like that is still way less environmental impact than a petrol or diesel car. But it's only when you get on an electric bike and you see the capacities of the battery and realize how much energy you're using to cover certain distances, you really realize that, particularly if you're traveling alone, or in my case, I'm just traveling with my son, mainly to take him to kindergarten and taking my daughter out on some trips. And I even picked her up from a sort of event in the evening in the city one time this week. And that was great fun. It wasn't raining, but that was great fun. The first thing you realize is that your energy usage is being measured in watt hours, not kilowatt hours. So the IONIQ Electric I used to have back in the UK had a kind of usable 28 kilowatt hour capacity battery. Teslas are up to kind of like 80, 100 kilowatt hour nominal kind of stated capacity of the battery packs. Some of these new pickup trucks and things are going even above 100 kilowatt hours. We're talking about, watt-hour batteries here. It's a 500 watt-hour battery on the bike. And of course, the range of the bike is technically infinite. It's as long as I can cycle it for the rest of my life. It's a lot easier to cycle with the assistance. I don't think I can get very far without it, so it does have a particular range. I might double up the battery to a 1 kilowatt hour total, 2 500 watt hour ones, but still you can just tell. I'll have to do some calculations. I'm looking forward to doing that as to the actual, watt hours per mile or watt hours per kilometer. I've got a feeling it's going to be really staggeringly low. The bike is about 35 kilograms. So with me on it, I'm 80 kilograms. With my daughter, who's 40 kilograms, or my son, who's 15, it's still a very light vehicle to be moving around a city. So the environmental impact is really, really low. And I'm really, really keen on electric cars, particularly with, air pollution improvements. There's been some articles this week that I've seen about the kind of head-to-toe health impact of, the noxious gases and particulate matter that comes out of petrol and diesel cars. It affects everything. It gets into every cell in the body. It causes all sorts of things. I think brain cancer was the new link that was established this week with air pollution. There's all kinds of other illnesses and harm that is caused by that. And then there was another story saying that a lot of the gains of people starting to adopt electric cars have been offset and actually just, reduced. It's gone the other direction with the huge uptake of SUVs around the world, particularly in America and in China. So that's kind of like negated the benefits of people driving EVs. So it's still a very good thing, but I think when you can, and if it's only one of you going around or just kind of commuting and so on, going by an even lower emissions mode of transport, even more sort of zero tailpipe emissions that you can get, but really hyper efficient, is the thing to do. And I'm going to give it a go for a while. Okay, and lastly, my reason number 5 is just fun. Unfortunately, it's got really dark at the moment in Denmark, and by the time I'm home from work, it's pitch black. By the time I'm sort of getting up in the morning to commute, it's also pitch black. The weekends I've had quite a bit on with still settling and things. So I haven't had much time to get some good quality footage of the bike. I've got a little bit here that I've been showing throughout the video. But I hope you get the sense it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy the stability of the bike. It's got a real sort of vehicle-like feel to it. I think it's about 2.5 meters long, so it's got a reasonable wheelbase. It does have the front suspension and the suspended seat post. It's really comfortable and really fun to get around. And it has this, especially when you've got a passenger in, it's got quite a bit of momentum. It doesn't cut out hard when you reach the speed limit, the legal speed limit, where the electric motor has to sort of, run down to not assist you anymore above 25 kilometers an hour, or about 15 miles an hour here. The cargo bike keeps going, particularly down hills. It's got great brakes. It's got reasonably good maneuverability for the length and the weight of the thing. And yeah, it's really good fun to ride. As I've said in previous videos, it's about 25, 30 years since I cycled, really, back in the UK, during the 1980s kind of BMX craze when I was younger. I never saw myself going back to it, and yet here I am. So those are my reasons then: traffic, cost, learning, even low emissions, and fun. And there'll be more videos about the bike when I get time to do some proper footage of it. I'll do some kind of review and again try and compare it to kind of electric vehicle technology and approaches and ideas and efficiency and things, because that's very much where I'm coming from in being interested in e-bikes. And I still do plan to get out for some test drives. It's extremely difficult to do things here in the winter, and with working full time, which I didn't used to do in the whole sort of a year ago, and getting the kids to make sure that they're settled in school and those kind of things. Those things are coming first at the moment, but there'll be more videos coming. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more from me, and bye for now.